Hey, Shalom, Shalom. It's your brother Allah from GMS London camp. First and foremost, we want to give all praises and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and blessings to the hopeful and sincere elect. Now, I just want to do a quick upload because, brothers held a camp, at the main headquarters, where we populate at. And we're going into the major camps, like major camp meetings, greetings, and all that, so to speak. And basically, after the camp, we didn't manage to get off camera because, the brother that we're going to speak about real quick, he's come up to the camp before, years before, when we was at a different location. And brothers recognized him when he came up after the camp. Basically, introduced himself, said Shalom and all that, and then he said that he was previously with the IUIC, that's in the UK area of London and stuff of that nature, traveling around London. They got different camps of the IUIC, and basically he was he got left or got kicked out late last year in December. So I said, see, since December he's left that group, the IUIC. He managed to, to distance himself from that that group of deception, man, that Christian slash Hebrew Israelite faith doctrine that they're pushing over there with the IUIC, with all this hell doctrine and a man sleeping with a woman outside of the circle of the nation of Israel. They're saying that's adultery. He was basically bringing up examples of what led to him leaving, because he was having disputes like spiritually, and he was battling with these demons in his mind, basically trying to source out why certain things were said in the scriptures and how it didn't really mesh the way that IUIC teach things when they all talk about the law, the law, the law. But we know by way of the spirit of the word of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, we're not going to be saved by keeping the law, because we can't anyway, not 100%, because we're in captivity. And we need to be we're not perfected basically as a people yet. And the only time we're going to be perfected is when we get into our own kingdom, when we set up our own, use the Lord's statutes and commandments to rule the earth in righteousness. That's when we're going to be perfected, so to speak, and have perfect bodies, so on and so forth. And the Lord put out the word on our inward parts, as the Lord commanded, which is going to happen, as soon as we receive those new bodies, man. Those bodies of that are sin proof. Because right now we're in these we're still in that feeble flesh, this body laden with iniquity, like Apostle Paul said. And it's a spiritual battle, man. That's why you got to continue to fight and endure unto the end. But either way, the brother's name's Elijah, and Aliyah in the Hebrew, Elijah, so he came up to the camp after the cameras was off, basically introduced himself or reintroduced himself, and brother said, yeah, we recognize you from when he previously came up to the camp. And I think brothers admonished him then, because he was kind of like in a camp hopping type spirit. He wasn't too sure of himself. The same situation kind of like last night when he came to the camp, he was still kind of unsure. But he managed to, the Lord basically put the spirit on him to break away from the IUIC, which is, the first good step in the right direction. Because if you're following those guys, you're just going to be led down that path of destruction, man. And it says, many shall follow their pernicious ways. And, he managed to get out of that circle of deception, as I said, man. And the Lord had mercy upon him. So basically, we was just going into why he left, and he brought up certain situations and stories, different priests, leaders in the in that network of the IUIC, Israelites United in Christianity, and what they push in the law, going into the mixed fabrics and all of this overdoing it, being overbearing regarding the law. As I said, we can't keep the law imperfect 100%. But they were stressing about keeping the law, and but they actually mingled and mangled the law. Like at the point with the fabrics and all that, insane. You can't wear mixed fabrics, but they was going into different. They was basically trying to strain at a gnat and getting too technical with different materials, which materials and everything elements come out of the earth, man. All these fabrics that we use are all man-made because man's making them from the elements that's coming out of the earth. So there was all that kind of confusion on that level, but we managed to hash that out with him and tell him basically, man, that, don't be too overzealous because it's obvious that some of your leaders in that school that you was following were being too over righteous, man. They're being too overzealous and destroying themselves in the midst of that, because they ain't mixed with faith. And then the other situation where bosses have brought this up before, in regards to the adultery. Now in IUIC, they say adultery is when you sleep with a woman of the world, whether it's a Snow White bunny, white woman, or another nation, or or even a Jake woman that's not in the truth. They say that's adultery, which is going off according to the scriptures. That's not what adultery is. Adultery is sleeping with another man's wife. And I'm sure this is the same situation that the Lima had to deal with when he got kicked out of the school for about a year, something like that, because they said he committed adultery with a woman, which implied the example that the brother Elijah gave us last night. It was basically a brother that's stepped out of the congregation to deal with a woman of the world, and he got persecuted for it, man. And it was like very, very strict and rigid on men of the camp dealing with women outside of the church and the congregation and other nations, women and all of that. And you can only have one wife. They're sticking to that staple too, because they're pushing that Western world type monogamous relationship when the scriptures basically pushes polygamy, man. Polygamy is a righteous thing. A man's allowed to have more than one wife, and he's allowed to have concubines too. So there's nothing wrong with you sleeping with the other nations' women, and all, as long as you're not worshiping their idols and doing all outlandish things to be with them, so to speak. That's away from the scriptures. But you can deal with another woman of the other nations, man. There's nothing wrong with that, man. But this, as I said, you got IUIC, they're strenuous on keeping the law, but there's a law of faith too, but they don't talk about that. And there's certain laws as well that they basically try to overt and remix, and don't take account for, like getting lineups, having long hair, dreadlocks, because a lot of them IUIC cats, they have lineups, they have dreadlocks, all these funny ass Greekish haircuts and all that. Westernized haircuts, modern day Greekish fashion, and then they was going into the undergarments with the borders and fringes and blue, and how they just over righteous with that as well, saying that brothers have to be wearing fringes and borders of blue all the time, no matter what they're doing in the world, in the truth. Even if they're going to sleep, the brother was saying that he had to. At one point, he was wearing t-shirts with borders and blue and fringes to bed, and all of that, and just over righteous, man. This shit that you're not even supposed to be doing, like just doing too much, man. And that's what happens when you get into this truth. Get certain guys, the knowledge goes to their head. They get puffed up with pride, and then they lose themselves. And then before you know it, they're leading the whole congregation of people down that same path, because they're not seeking they don't have no balance, man. In the IUIC, they refuse to teach the name of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. Worshipping a false god, the Cesare Borgia. That's their deity that they worship over there, because that's who paid Bishop Nate to start teaching lies and not teaching the names of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai anymore. He took a bag, and even this brother Elijah was qualifying that, saying that the way the bishop acts and how he's been changing up the doctrine over the years, it's evident that he took a bag, man. He sold out, man, and he was aware of it, and certain other things that was going on in the school, other captains and leaders, and how they're not, all there in the, membrane, so to speak. They're very, like they're just basically parrots, just copying what the top leaders of the school were saying and just reiterating what they've been taught, without actually, studying and going into depth. But then went into the Mark of the Beast